guys, welcome to What on New Earth. I'm Debbie Dubois, and if this is your first time here, welcome to my channel, What on New Earth. We are about ready to talk about something that I believe this is one of the most important videos that I have done on twin flames. Those of you that have known me for a long time, you will know that I made my start in YouTube pretty much talking about twin flames. I haven't done a lot of work on the subject of twin flames because I've been so busy working on my inner journey that, I just got to a space where I really needed to work on myself. But during this period of time, everything that I've ever done on twin flames has really been about sharing my journey and my truth and some of the things that, my inner being and my inner guidance has been showing me. And I think of myself as just maybe a person that will confirm to you your own experiences. So in this particular conversation, I'm inviting a friend of mine in, Hamish. I met Hamish on Lisa Harrison's calls, her calls and her chat thread. And it was last week we had a pretty interesting call with Lisa that brought out a very important aspect of the subject of twin flames. And I knew immediately that I wanted to talk to him further about it. So we did talk about it. And we had such a conversation about all this that I felt that it would be really, really helpful and important to invite him on and have this conversation with someone who I really think is an incredible, awakened divine masculine who has a very solid understanding of a lot of what's happening right now, and has proven himself to be extremely trustworthy, not an ego, extremely smart, a great communicator. So I thought I would bring him on as a treat, and we're going to have a conversation about twin flames. We both felt that this was a very important video to make because of where we're at right now. We're at a very, very important juncture in our ascension process to where, we talk about the event, we talk about ascension, we talk about all those things. It's right here. So even though this is a very important video, we both know that it doesn't matter how many people see it, the right people see it, perfect. The message is right for certain people, perfect. But by speaking it out loud and putting the conversation out there, we know that that is what we're being called to do. So without further ado, I do want to say that this is important to me, that this is not a channeled message in any shape or form. This is firsthand experience from my inner being, from Hamish's inner being, and this is guidance that we're given inside of ourselves that we feel really called to share. So the other thing I want to say before I introduce Hamish is I want to look at, and I've made several notes, so just to make sure that I hit all the points that were important, to me on this, that I think will be helpful for you. We're going to be looking at the twin flame dynamic right now from a new perspective as we are in a timeline convergence. And how do we know we're on the one timeline? And that's because we can globally see everything from the same perspective. Like you might be viewing it from this theater and someone else might be viewing it from this theater, but this global thing has been playing out and this has been going on for several years. But now we're in the throes of a finalized timeline. We are marching towards ascension. A lot of people think of it as the ascension. You can think of it as a solar flash. You can think of it as exiting the false matrix, however you want to see it. That's up to you. But what I notice is we're all a lot further along on this path, this catalytic heart awakening path. So most of I'm in touch with a lot of people that are still on this path, that I've known for years and years, and we're all seeing pretty much some of the same things. This is what I've been seeing in the ones that were like the more awakened, the ones that we're all interacting with on chat threads and stuff like that. Number one, we're all standing in our power. We're also letting go of divine masculine. Most people are really letting go at this point. We've done a lot of healing around trauma. That's different lifetimes. That's this lifetime. We're healing from the divine masculine triggers that we dealt with. Most of us have dealt with abandonment issues. Most of us have left unrewarding or codependent marriages, or just marriages that weren't bringing us the level of happiness that we needed, and other relationships like that. We're becoming happier with ourselves. A lot of us are very much financially supporting ourselves, or becoming more abundant, or pursuing career paths that we might not have been otherwise. A lot of us are opening up to new relationships. That's really important. However, I think to a varying degree, we're still on different levels of connection with that divine masculine who catalyzed us. There are some who are outright denouncing, yeah, no, not going there, done that, been there, done that, not doing that. Then there's some that are kind of holding out hope that maybe, when things happen, a union's is gonna come to be in pass with that person. And then there are some that strongly believe in union. There are some that are in union. So on that note, I want to bring in Hamish, because what I want to share with you is a piece of the puzzle that was shown to me by him. And all right, I'm going to do this. This is going to be tricky for me, but I'm going to bring him in. So give me just a second. And we are going to bring in Hamish. All right, just give me a second. It takes just a minute, and here we are. Yay! He's about to show up. There he is. Hey, Hamish, how are you?
Debbie, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I am really honored to have you on here. We have become fast friends. We've had some incredible conversations, and I basically just gave those people that follow my channel or my work, I gave them some ideas about, the twin flame, where we've been on the twin flame journey, how I feel that where we kind of stand right now. But before we get started on our conversation, I do want to introduce to everyone, who you are. And you sent me some information, so I'm just going to, read it if you don't mind, so people know who you are.
Yep.
Hamish is a 5th generation farmer, and he grew up on a 100,000 acre sheep station in the outback of Australia, which I think is very cool. Hang on a second. Of course, I folded my paper. He always felt connected in a way different than other people around him were connected. But he felt that he blended in very much into a normal life until about 2008, when things just started to become more apparent and he began to actively question what was going on around him. Starting with Lynn McTaggart's book, The Field. Is that about energetic healing, Hamish?
Yeah, it leads into it. Yes, she's done a couple of things since around group healing and meditation and prayer. So she's very hard science.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But she was hard science until she got into that, and yeah, so it's good.
That's kind of where your path started. And then, he said here, he never looked back. He now lives with his wife and 3 homeschooled children. He's deeply involved in the local community, and he works with people in a shamanic healing capacity, of which I have had a chance to work with you. So I can vouch for that, the fact that you do that really well. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
So hang on just one second. I want to make sure that, let me see here. All right. So what I really wanted to start with is the experience that you talked about on Lisa's call that caught my attention. And I'll be honest, I was doing some customer service stuff and I was looking down at my phone and I heard you start talking about a catalytic situation. And of course I went, what's Hamish talking about? And I missed it, but you told me enough. I heard enough to know I needed to talk with you. Tell me about that situation.
Okay, so it was it would only became relevant to me in a greater sense because it was kind of the second the second one of those situations I dealt with in about a week. And so in that particular situation, it was someone who I'd done work with before, and we've done quite a lot of work together, not just healing sessions with each other, but also other work as well, energetically. And she hit a situation, and twin flame is not a phrase that would come out of her mouth ever.
Right.
And she hit a situation where she was in a long-term relationship with someone and very happy, and ran into this person who, in her words, a very good-looking man, and who she had to work with as a colleague. And she said that the longer she stayed around, this static charge built up between them until she felt like she physically needed to vomit. Like, it was such an intense feeling. And she kind of didn't know what to do with it. She's like, this is really weird. And so she kind of lent into it to go, who is this person? And then found out that he had these traits that her partner didn't. Like, her partner's lots of other things, but he's not very spiritual. Whereas this person is very spiritually connected and like filled all of those gaps. It was almost too neat, in a way, for her. Like, she's like, wow, there's no one here I can talk to like this, but this person fills that gap perfectly. And so she said immediately to me, is this a trap? Like, is something going on here? Because this is the sort of stuff we've been involved with, is like, I don't actually trust this. Like, I trust him to a point, but I don't trust the situation. I don't trust what's going on. Can you please have a look? And so I looked into him and didn't really see any problems at all. I didn't see any big issues, as far as you can look into someone without their permission, because I'm pretty fastidious about that sort of stuff. I don't like overstepping boundaries at all, ever. And so I looked into him from her point of view, and it all looked pretty good. And I looked into her, and everything looked pretty good. And so particularly from my experience with her, but also my experience in general in the last few years of energetic implants, because that's a lot of work that seems to come my way, is helping people with implants and trauma structures in their energetic bodies. And I was asking all these questions, and I just hadn't asked the right question. I couldn't see what was going on. And so I just said, okay, show me what is causing this crazy physical energetic attraction between these two people. And it was like, bam, it just came up straight away. And the only way I could describe it, and maybe it just came to me like this because I deal with physical, like energetic implants a lot, but it came to me like a pattern, almost like those necklaces with the two heart, like the heart that's broken down the middle, and one person wears one half and the other person wears the other. But it looked like a snowflake. Like, it looked like a beautiful, intricate geometric pattern, but half belonged to one person and was embedded in them. And it took up the shape of the whole pattern, but only half of it was there. And the other person had the other half. And because there were a lot of things pointing to this relationship not being a bad thing for her at all, actually quite an empowering thing, definitely spiritually on the face of it, and energetically, and something that was almost being looked for. And so I was like, it's not like, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. And so I specifically asked, is this relationship a bad thing? Is it non-beneficial for her? And I just kind of got like neutral. That's completely neutral. And so then I asked, so is the snowflake geometry implant, is that energy beneficial? And I got absolutely not, like just a flat no. So that led me to the point of going, well, whatever this crazy, because there's definitely like a chemistry between these two people, but whatever this chemistry is that's really like jamming them together like magnets, that's implanted. That's totally false in a sense, or not false as in it doesn't exist, but false as in someone's put it there and it shouldn't be there. And so we removed her side of the equation And it completely put her in a different space, kind of changed everything. It's to be continued because he hasn't been around, funnily enough, since that happened. And so don't know how that looks as, the two of them coming back together in the same room or the same workspace. But it
took him out. It took
yeah,
him out.
even that in itself, it's like, so where did he go? Well, he's vanished. It's like,
Right.
well, that's weird. So, like I said, it's my first specific kind of twin flamey thing where that was the thing going on. I haven't really had that much, but it was the second one in a week. And so I was like, right, that's why I mentioned it on the call, because I went, there's something going on here with this energy, the way I'm viewing it.
Well, and I think you looked into it. She asked you to look into it, and you said that there was actually a potential for a relationship there. I mean, that it was a good possible relationship. And the one thing that I remember you saying is, you looked at the guy and they wanted different things at that particular time. She wanted a safe relationship and he wanted, to play the field. He was honest with her. He was in his integrity. He just said, I'm not interested in being focused on one person, but if you want to go, we'll do that. So in essence, you saw that. So just so I can share with the viewer, like, why this is so significant to me is that when I was listening to you say this, I'm thinking to myself, I want to know if I have that pattern on me and the person that we consider twin flame. I wanted to know right away. I was like, oh my God, because there's been a lot of, it has not been an easy road. It's been a rocky road. And yeah, I was like, sign me up. I want to know. And I guess it's just where I'm at with my spiritual journey right now is I'm ready to see stuff. I want to know what's going on. So basically what I did is I chatted up Hamish on the chat. I was like, hey, do you do sessions? Can I book one with you? And you were like, yeah. So we actually talked that night, and without getting into any real detail, tell me what you saw in me. Tell them what you saw in me.
Well, it was pretty much the same thing. It was very similar in a way. It was that same pattern of this half of this geometric pattern had been put in you, and the other half of it, program is another way of putting it, right? It's like a magnetization program, and I'm just seeing it as geometry, but it's been not cut in half. It's not like it was cut down the middle, but it's kind of been like that, or more like that. It's like it's overlaid and it's pulled apart, and half goes to one and half goes to the other. Right. And all that program wants to do is come back together. Like that's all it's designed to do, is it needs to fuse. And not only that, but what I was shown was when it fuses, something else happens. Like there's this thing that is
activated.
Born is maybe too activated. Yeah, born is maybe too strong a word, like birthed, but something definitely arises out of this pattern coming back together, if it can come back together with a strong enough resonance. And that resonance, of course, is human, spiritual, sexual energy, whatever what you want to put on that. But when two people come together in that way, it's fireworks, and that energy can be used. And how many sex magic books are there out there? Like that energy is used deliberately all the time. And so it's no surprise that someone could surreptitiously do that, like, try and get these two beings to come together with maximum magnetic attraction and fireworks. It's just you don't realize that the attraction's always there. Like it would be probably very rare. It probably wouldn't work if you put this sort of structure, this program, if you put it into two people who wouldn't be attracted anyway, I doubt it would work. And so that would be pointless. But if you put it in two people who were probably going to run into each other and were fairly compatible anyway, you're going to get this big reaction. And out of that reaction, something will get activated, something will get brought in. And I think that's what was shown to me, is that was the underlying reason why this stuff existed, was certain energies. It was like cooking. It was almost like baking. It was like, we need that person and that person to energetically get together roughly around this time period. And when they do, with just the right amount of spice and salt and whatever else, this will get brought forward. And so people are kind of getting used in a way.
Right. Well, and I remember the first thing that came to my mind, and I think I asked you right then and there, is that wasn't put on me by my higher self. Because sometimes you think, well, because I think that there's this feeling that in this path, that this is something we set ourselves up for in the beginning so that we would grow spiritually. So that was my first question, is, did I do this? And what was your answer? You were like,
no, no. And that, I mean, that's my first question as well. When I see something like that, it's like, is it beneficial? Did you consent to it? Is this something that the higher self deliberately brought forward? And the answer was absolutely not.
you even said to me, you didn't think that we might even have met, or we wouldn't have maybe noticed each other if it wasn't for this kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so we had a really great conversation about all that, but I remember the very next day, I started thinking and I'm thinking, and I had this occur to me. Okay, so if I've got this whisper in my ear about someone that I find attractive, and if I start focusing on them and I start, paying attention, like, oh, wow, this person interests me, and I start focusing my energy and attention, I asked you, could I have catalyzed this? Like maybe it's neutral until someone comes along and says, oh yeah, I want this to happen. And then it catalyzed it. And then what was your response to that? I love what you said.
Oh, you'll have to remind me.
Okay.
I'll say what I'd say in the moment, and then you tell me what I actually said then. But I would say, yeah, I would say in this moment, my answer to that would be, everything that you've just said is valid, and that is why you would choose two people that are fairly compatible in very particular ways, so that they will think about each other and they will have that creator effect, because that's the fireworks you're looking for. You're always looking to get these sort of beings. This game, the way that works is you're looking to get maximum energetic effect for minimal energetic input. So you want to plant the smallest seed in the human consciousness possible and have them give you the biggest output out the other end.
They don't create.
They can't create.
So they're basically, and the other thing that you said is that, we were looking at responsibility. So I was, you were pointing out, hey, that's very responsible of you to see, is that something that you created, and take responsibility for it. But you also said that people can lean two different directions. They can think things are happening to them and they're victims, or that they created it all themselves. And your response about that was really, really good. And I'll just refresh your memory. You said it's a little of both, and you said it's a little bit like putting a glass of whiskey in front of an alcoholic. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah. Because you can always say, look, you're the one that picked up the glass and drank it.
Right.
And any judge in any courtroom who was not totally corrupted, and we won't go down the judge and courtroom line, but you know the metaphor.
Maybe yeah.
But any person who was brought in to arbitrarily judge a situation would say, if you hadn't have poured the glass full of whiskey and put it in front of them, they wouldn't have ever drank it. So saying it's all your fault because you drank the whiskey is like, who put it there in the first place?
That's the first question I had is, oh my God, am I responsible for this mess? And if I hadn't, but then, what you said is that's entrapment. If someone puts down a glass of whiskey in front of an alcoholic, that's entrapment.
That's entrapment. It's total. And we are dealing with we're energetically gaslit and programmed, and there's lots of weird stuff going on in here, but entrapment and loopholes is how this whole thing operates. Like that. Yeah. That's how these beings get done what they're trying to get done. Yeah.
Right. So, I want to ask you at this point, what other overlays or interference or control structures have you seen? Just maybe even not with twin flame, but with any kind of, you were mentioning, we were having a conversation earlier and you were talking about mirrors and
Mm.
what other things, is there a way to describe some of those things that you've seen?
Yeah, mirror. I call it mirror tech. Mirror technology is very good and very kind of cliche in the magical circles, I guess, but it works in ways that you wouldn't think. Like for a romantic attraction, the mirror idea would be you're someone who has a bit of trouble loving themselves, particularly if your earlier life has been set up, or earlier lives, how far do you want to go back? You've been set up in a way that you've been entrapped into doing things that would actually be quite unlovable if you had a memory of them. So you've kind of got this idea and you've been entrapped into it to start with. So it's not necessarily your fault that you have this feeling towards yourself, but you really want to love yourself because, I mean, we're humans. We're set up on that. And so when you see yourself in another being, particularly, another, if you're a woman and there's a man, or you're a man and there's a woman, like you've got all that overlay of wife, husband, partner, life partner, children, family,
Right.
and there it is. But what you're seeing is you, because this person's got mirror technology in them, and you're just seeing a reflection of yourself come back, and they don't know what you're seeing, because no one can really know what anyone else is seeing at any one time. So they don't know that what you're seeing is a reflection of you, because they might not even be aware that they're carrying this sort of technology. So you fall in love with you, and you're pouring all your love into you, but you're not there. You're pouring your love into a mirror. So it's going straight through the mirror and out the back. And the old magical analogy is, part of, like, half of what you throw at a mirror gets reflected back at you. That's the illusion. And the other part goes straight through to whatever's standing behind. Who's standing behind the mirror?
Right.
And it's not the being, it's not the person that you're throwing this love at. It's getting siphoned. It's going somewhere else. And so that doesn't have to just be romantic. That can be set up in lots of different ways.
It's interesting because what came to my mind when you said that, and I haven't really thought about this yet, but when I listen to, like, there are self-confessed narcissists on TikTok that will talk about not loving themselves. And the ones that I've heard talk about it, they actually say that they fall in love super easily because they're looking for someone to reflect back something to them, to make them really love themselves. So they usually idealize someone only to find out that that person falls flat. I mean, I'm just thinking, hey, it's not impossible that, we have all of these control structures in here, but we could have that kind of technology being used against narcissists to keep them broken, instead of having them really find someone that says, hey, you may think you're all this, but I think you're amazing. And, but it seems like they keep cycling these relationships and this damage and this trauma. And frankly, I know what the trauma feels like. Been there, done that. And I'm sure other people do. So I was having a conversation with my business partner and one of my best friends in the world, Kimberly, and we were talking about you and I getting on here to talk. And I said, Kimberly, if you were to ask Hamish something, because she is also a twin flame, and she's, kind of in the same space I am, headspace as I am. So I asked her, what would you ask him? And her biggest question was, to what extent do you think this hijacking, because that's a hijacking. If and listen, I want to say this right now to my viewers. I'm looking at my viewers. I want to say this right now. There's nothing worse than having that. I mean, if anyone was to say what a bona fide twin flame looked like, it would be me. And I think almost any of you that know my story would say, oh my God, yes, you're a bona fide twin flame. Right down to the fact that my twin flame thought we were bona fide twin flames. Okay. So it was mutual. There was no, oh, I just met someone and they're running away from me. No, that's not my situation. But I had to deal with the fact that this happened to me. Now, and you know what, before we talk about Kimberly, I wanted to say this too, is, Hamish, we talked a little bit today. It's not impossible that just because you're overlaid with another person, that there isn't potential for a relationship there. They pick two people that are
Right.
usually compatible, that would like
Exactly.
things, that would be enjoying. They know what they're doing.
They know
So
what they're doing.
right. So I want to encourage anyone that's going, oh, holy shit, is this me? Oh my God, what if this is me? First of all, there's ways to tell. You can either ask your inner being, go in and do that work. What kind of implants are there? Or someone like Hamish, he does that kind of work. You can find out if this is the case with you. And of course, it's up to you if you're ready to see that, or if you even believe it. That is your path. And I'm not trying to dissuade you from whatever your belief is. You have to believe what you believe. But what I can say is that since I've discovered this, and my inner being was getting me prepared for this, since I've figured this out, so many things have started to make sense to me. So many things have started surfacing from the past that were traumas that I didn't really deal with, that I didn't really process. And it's my opportunity to actually heal. So, and I will also say this, I have not 100% given up on having a relationship at some point with this person. We've decided not to be together in this lifetime. That could change. If that changed, I'd be open, because there's actually elements of a real relationship there. So I'm not trying to put out anyone's fire. I'm not trying to tell you what to think. What I'm trying to tell you is a piece that I discovered that was really hard for me to swallow. And if I can swallow it, anyone can swallow it. And I think, you're talking to people who saw me go through this for 11 years, 12 years, maybe even 13 years. And we're like, yeah, you're going crazy. So, if I can face this kind of thing and look it in the eyes, that's all I'm saying, is you now have an opportunity to look that truth in the eye and find out what the truth is. Because you heard Hamish say these two people that were being catalyzed could have actually been divine counterparts. It was not their time. Maybe someone wanted to speed it up. So how many of us wouldn't admit that, oh my God, maybe someone tried to speed up a connection that would have come to fruition naturally without blowing up my whole life?
Yeah. And if I was a controller being, or I was trying to harvest a certain sort of energy here, and I was using particularly creator beings to do it, there's two ways that I would go about it. And way number one would be, I would put that snowflake geometry, I'd put that magnetic resonance into you and someone who you would resonate with, but it has got nothing to do with your life path or anything like it. No, just complete left field. And the other way I would deal with it is I would put it into you and the absolute ideal, only one person you could ever be with happily here. Because both of those ways are going to get what you want. They're either going to drag you way away from where you should be, or they're going to put you exactly where you should be, but there's going to be this weird holographic overlay between you, this falseness that stops it from actually happening. So just because you had a holographic inlay in you, and so did the other person, and someone was harvesting something, doesn't mean that's not the person you're meant to actually be with. That just means someone's messing with you. And you want to get rid of that first before you ask any other questions.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad. And we have not discussed this before. So there's a brand new truth coming out that I really resonate with. I believe there probably are a lot of people out there that have the potential of having a connection with the person. But my feeling is, if they throw it on you a time before you're prepared and really healed, then they bring together people who blow up and just aren't ready for it. That's the other thing. Because the whole thing about a sacred counterpart is that, and this is what I'm really beginning to learn more and more about, is it's about coming home to you. You are your home. And we get trained in the twin flame community to think we go home to the other person. That person is our home. And that is something that was blatantly showed as false to me in a meditation I did, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days ago, where I came into contact with my 10-year in the future ascended self. I'm going to reveal that, guys, 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road is an ascended being. And of course, time's all going on at once. So that being sitting right there. But I got to see her, meet her, and feel the love and the energy. And it was the first time I understood something. That is home. That is your home. There was no anywhere in the universe there. I've never felt so loved. I have never felt so appreciated. I never felt so protected, so cared for. So they were, this energy was so grateful for me, and all that I'm doing now that allows her to be what she is in that time space. And once I saw that piece, and then this piece came in with Hamish, I started to understand something for real. Regardless of what this twin flame situation is in this construct, and I'm going to come right out and say it, guys, we are in a false matrix. If you don't know where you are, you need to find out where you are, because we're in a false matrix. So what they're doing in the false matrix is they're literally they're misdirecting you by giving you tastes of something you already know deep down inside outside the matrix, and they're totally distorting it. So what I realized is that in the moment that I had that meeting with myself, I just bawled my eyes out. I'm no shame in saying that. I sobbed, and I didn't expect it because I was in meditation. I was boo-hooing. But when I realized that, I thought, only when we realize and we come home to ourselves and we are in our wholeness, would we even recognize that counterpart. And that counterpart is literally going to be in the same space you are. If you're talking about the kind of union that everyone's been waiting for, some have given up on, the connection with another, if you're going to have a connection with another. So anyways, that's my soap opera, or my soapbox, sorry, my soap opera, my soapbox. Do you have anything to add to that, Hamish?
Yeah, that's kind of how I view things now anyway. I couldn't tell you how long I viewed it like that. Probably not always, but definitely if you're not whole in yourself, and that is like masculine, feminine, neutral, however you want to lie that, positive, negative, whatever. Like if you can't be whole all on your own, you're never going to be whole with another being. The idea that you're a half and another being's a half and you make a perfect, it's like, no. Right. No, you're a perfect whole, whether you realize it or not. And the bits that you've forgotten or don't realize is why you feel broken, but you're not broken because you're unbreakable. You are a perfect whole, and someone else is a perfect whole. And when you come together, you can create a third thing between you. And that's two creator beings coming together. Right. But it's not, you're not looking for that other being to fix something that's broken in you. Now, if there's a bit of you that you've forgotten about or feels broken or disconnected or whatever, and this other being has healed that part, or that part is whole in them, then the resonance between you can be used. Like my favorite analogy is you pluck the E string on a guitar in a room, and the E string on the second guitar in the room will vibrate. And it's just how it works. And sound comes before light, comes before material. Sound comes before anything in here. So that resonance frequency, and that feels like, oh my God, you healed me, you made me whole. It's like, no, you were whole. There was just something blocking it. You forgot about a bit. It was just had a bit of shadow on it. And once that gets cleaned off, and I didn't clean it off, I showed you how to clean it off, and you cleaned it yourself, because you are whole. You don't need me any more than you need anyone else. And then because you don't need someone, then it's not desperate. It's like we're coming together because it's fun. We're not coming together because we desperately need each other. That's a very different energy.
Well, and there was something that you said, we were talking earlier, and yeah, we ended up having a really good conversation today that really led to this because of the fact we had some extra time before we could record. And one of the things that we were talking about is trauma and dealing with trauma. And a lot of the things that happen in the traditional twin flame situation, and God, I talked about it enough back in the day, was, this whole runner chaser thing, or this whole bubble phase where you're in this bubble phase, then you fall out of this bubble phase. And so Hamish and I were kind of talking about, he made this realization, and he was like, that's just like trauma bond. I mean, that's what the controllers of the planet, the MK Ultra, it was all about love bombing and then crashing the person to the ground, and then you're left without that person. And something you said to me was really healing, because of course I don't know anyone that didn't go through the bubble phase. I didn't think I was going through it. I'm like, oh no. And I even said that to my twin. I was like, yeah, we're not going through that. And he was like, no, we're not going through that. And it's like, sure enough, it was 9 months, I think. And it was that. But regardless, if you went through it, one of the things, and Hamish said this to me today, and it was so healing. He said, to open your heart to another, like you get with that catalytic heart awakening, should never be traumatic and painful. It should be done when you're in a safe space. And we wonder why we had to go through this. I want to say, I mean, I was talking to Kimberly, we'll talk about what she said, but I was talking to Kimberly, and we're both like, oh my God, surely there was an easier way to get here than where we went, because we had to go through all of these feelings of worthlessness and abandonment, and why isn't he with me, and blah, 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 blah. Right? And when you said that, I was like, thank you. We should never have to go through that trauma of being abandoned, like at the same time, let's face it, if you're in a space where you're healed, you're not going to choose that experience anyways. You're not going to create it for yourself. You're not going to project it. So
we're talking about, well, once again, we're saying, well, if you say, well, maybe I chose that experience for myself, and you go, yeah, if you were gaslit into it, if you were kind of loopholed into it from lifetimes before, you might think that was a good way to do it. But anyone who, like I said, growing up on a sheep station with livestock, with sheep, with cattle, with training working dogs, once I looked in this realm enough, and I realized, oh, we're the sheep, like because of how a really good farming operation works, and how to train a horse and how to train a dog. Like, you can do it with a big stick and pain, or you can do it with food, or you can do it with love and consciousness. And then you look into the MK Ultra programs and the trauma training programs and just the normal old military programs, and how trauma conditioning, and then housewives and children that are getting beaten up by their parents and all of that stuff. And you just go, it's all the same thing. There's this trauma bonding from a trauma condition response that puts you in a position that you never would be in without the trauma. And we always focus on the trauma, but my angle on that always is the trauma is secondary. The trauma is just to reinforce something else. And you're meant to focus on the trauma, because if you focus on the trauma, you don't actually notice the program that's getting implanted into you. And the trauma is just to say, don't look at that. And every time you go to look at that, trauma. And so you just learn to never look, and you learn to behave, and you learn to sit before the bowl of food's put down, or you go left instead of right, whatever it is, whatever the training is, because people trauma train animals all the time, and children in schools with bells and detention and, rulers on knuckles, and we see it everywhere.
Right.
But that's relationship stuff as well. Like, people trauma bond and trauma train each other in relationships.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And it's a great, and from a livestock point of view, for me, like for a dog or a horse, or for cattle or sheep that you're going to hold on to long term.
Mhm.
Trauma training is a quick way of getting it done, but it's really dirty and
Right.
it's quite costly, but it's fast and it's super effective. So if
Okay.
you don't care about the animal and their welfare, and it's like a quick turnover anyway, just trauma train. It's no drama. But you can do exactly the same training without any trauma. And
Right.
you try and tell someone in a twin flame situation, or someone who's been beaten up by a spouse or a child or whatever,
Mhm.
you could have had all these experiences and learnt just as much, if not more, without the trauma. If they're out the other side, and they'd say, I don't see how I could have ever gone through this life or learnt those lessons without the trauma. But
I still feel that
a,
way. Yep.
a person who trains working dogs or who trains stock horses with trauma would say the same thing. They'd say there's no way you can train a horse to do what it needs to do without trauma. And there are literally people out there that do it every day, horse whisperers and all that sort of business. Like, you can absolutely train people, and it's not training. That's the thing. It's more like teaching. You're
Right.
teaching the animal how to do something, and it's a communion, it's a communication. Whereas trauma training is exactly that. This is how we do it. And if you question it, you'll get it twice as hard, kind of thing.
Well, Sim,
And
when you're talking about trauma training, you're talking about how the controllers might have approached us with this twin flame thing. Is that what you're talking about?
absolutely,
Okay. I
absolutely,
was gonna
yeah,
say, I mean, then you end up in these situations, and it's like you said something that really stands out for me, which is I know how much I've grown over the last number of years. I mean, like, this is my story, okay? Sharing the story. I don't feel like I would be the same person I am. I probably wouldn't. If I did not have this, if you want to call it the bubble where it bursts and you have to step into your own power and you have to realize you're the master of your own domain, and you become stronger, and then you become invincible. But that has led to feminism on the planet, right? Where everyone's screaming, the women are screaming, I don't want to be in a relationship with a man, and men, there's nothing a man can do for me that I can't do for myself. And we've spawned off this whole thing from this flavor of energy. Not to digress so much into that conversation, but to say, here I am, my inner being, real recent walk-in, full, like, big download, upload, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure, like, what path I could have taken that would have gotten me there that fast.
yeah, That's and that as someone who has never trained horses, but dogs are very the same, and has trained working dogs in both, like dogs to work with livestock with you to help you out in both methods. Because the first, when I was younger, was like, well, this is how you train a dog. And it was basically trauma training, and including, like, when we talk about trauma training, that doesn't mean that you're not giving them treats when they behave well. Like, that's part of it. The reward when you do the right thing is just as compelling as the smack when you do the wrong thing. It's still a traumatic way of training. You're just doing energetic spikes. And so the rat always looks for the pleasure. Like, you're always trying to do the right thing to get the right sort of feedback. I would have said there was no other way that you could train a dog or a mob of sheep or whatever.
Right.
But then I learned how to, and I went, yeah, from my point of view of where my conscious brain was, there's no way I could have done that. But when you can step out of that and come at it from another side, you go, oh yeah, that's how you could do it without any of that. And it might take longer and it might not work. And the thing is, you might get out of 10, I keep going back to working dogs, but out of 10 working dogs, trauma training will give you 8 reasonable ones. Non-trauma training will give you 4 brilliant ones and 6 that just won't. And so you can see why trauma training, you're never going to get whole, you're never going to be amazing, but you'll get more bang for your buck in a way. And so you can't see from the point of view of the path that you've taken to get to the top of the mountain. You can't see any other way to get up the mountain. But there was another path on the other side to wholeness. And once you're at wholeness, which I don't know that any of us get there in here, but we get as close as we can. You kind of look back and go, I didn't need all those traumatic experiences to teach me to be a strong, empowered person. I could have had strong, empowering experiences to teach me how to be a strong and empowered person.
Right.
Because
it's so hard to even conceive of it, though, is my point. It's hard to conceive of it because when you've been a certain path, this is the path that you are on. And I think I'm saying that for the benefit of any of you that are listening to this. We might have thought that this was the only way to get to where we're going. And the truth is we were on the path that we were on. I mean, obviously we all experienced it and we're somewhere else on the path. I can't speak to where you're on your path, but that we don't have to be traumatized in order for us to learn what we need to learn. And I think that plays into boundary setting. If you're still in a place where you feel like you're being traumatized, or you feel like you're being disempowered, or you feel like, and this doesn't, listen, anyone that's listening that's not a twin flame, I mean, you're going to have the same thing in your life. It's almost like you have to get to a point where you're like, you know what, I do not consent. As Athena would say, I do not consent to this. And to put a boundary up and say, I'm going to have my way forward different, that is more empowering, that is, and that's where we make some fundamental shifts, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the only reason this ever became apparent to me, because I could read people and I could understand what was going on growing up, and I understand what I could understand, I guess, but I was pretty good at that. But it was when I started to see the energies, like visually, and then ask the questions, or feel them to start with, but know what they would look like if I could see them, and then ask the questions, is that beneficial? And why is that there? And who put that there? And what's going on with that? I started to see there are a lot of relationships going on, not just romantic ones, but there's just a lot of interaction and relationships going on around here that are set up. And it's not that you wouldn't have had the relationship, but you're having it in this really off way because it's come together in an off way. And it's just a cook up. And you remove as much of the baggage and as much of whatever's in you that's not you, you remove as much of that as possible, because there are just holographic overlay implants. Some people don't have a lot, but some people have got a lot. Right. And when you get rid of all of that, you can start to feel things a bit more for how they would genuinely be, because it's not like we're going to be in here not having genuine interactions. Like you said, we're in a false matrix, and a lot of people take umbrage with that because they say, no, there's nature, like there's other people in here, this feels real. Right. And my answer to that is, because we are real. That's why it feels real. We are real, but the overlay structure that we're in is not real. That's why there's always a missing link between humans and nature, because it's like we're not meant to be here in this way. Something's off, something's very off. And so the realest thing that we can have in here is interactions with ourselves, with other people, or the interactions that people have with nature, because they drop down to that nature level inside themselves, and there's this communion that goes on. But you're not having that with an aluminium tin can on wheels. You're not having that with the energetic grid. It's not happening like that. Right. Because it's just all this other weird energy in here, but that makes up most of our day and takes up most of our energy.
Right. Oh, that's absolutely true. They've kept us so busy on a hamster wheel, but I've noticed that so many of us are breaking away from that and finding other ways so that we can Gosh, there was something that I wanted to say. Oh, well, the perfect thing that you were talking about with the overlays and the implants and the whole thing, that's a perfect time for me to bring up. I've talked about on my channel before Athena's videos. And anyone that's listened to my videos before, I know you've heard me talk about Athena. If you haven't, she is someone who's been able to really go in and see the nature of reality through connection with the creator beings that created the reality. And she says everyone can do it. This is not something she can't do, that anyone else can't. Everyone can do this if you learn how. But she's gone in and she's actually seen a bunch of what's happening in reality. And the reason why I bring this up is her most recent video is dealing with exactly, it just came out what, yesterday, Hamish? It was dealing
Yeah.
with exactly what we're talking about right now, which I thought, oh my gosh, Athena, high five, girl. We're in the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in the same place because she's talking about removing templates. And what I realized, and this was an important point that we didn't mention before, what I realized, what I did over time with the twin flame was basically demagnetize myself when I did not like how I was feeling. And I can imagine that those of you listening, 99% are going to say, oh, I understand, because you can only stay in that trauma, especially, I mean, unless you're like in a relationship, a cohabitating relationship where you're with the person all the time. That makes it really difficult to demagnetize, and you're dealing with a totally different ball of wax anyways. I'm talking to you that for whatever reason, you haven't been able to get together, or the person's off and whatever. If you go through a long enough period of time, you're gonna demagnetize because you have to protect yourself. You have to buffer yourself. And that's where a lot of this, I'm strong, I can take care of myself, comes from, that I know that I developed. So the demagnetization process, her video, and I'm going to link it below, talks about working with your inner being to, and not everyone knows how to do that. And like I said, someone like Hamish is really good at identifying that stuff and helping you see it and helping you remove it. So you got someone, we'll get his information down in the description box too, so that if you want any help. But this is something that she's talking about that needs to be done right now. She said, time is running out. We are exiting the matrix. We are leaving the matrix. We've been, and Hamish and I have been talking about this for a while. We are going down. We are sliding downhill. This reality has been going down, down, down. We've been going that way for a long time, haven't we, Hamish? And we're getting ready. Call it the flash, solar flash, call it the event, call it ascension. You can call it whatever you want. It's rapidly approaching, but we get there by doing the work and getting ourselves healed, ready. And we cannot perceive reality in its true form if we got these overlays. We just can't.
No.
Right?
No.
And
you can't. Yeah. The way I was first introduced to that was the idea of chakras, or energy centers in your body being like lenses, lenses for the eye. And if you're gummed up, if there's all this trash and accumulated stuff in that energy center, then when you go to look through your heart or your solar plexus or your sexual center or whatever, when you go to view the world through that and interact with the world, you're looking through dirty glasses. And so some of my initial training was learning how to clean the lenses and clear them. And then it occurred to me that the dirt wasn't mostly coming from the outside. Mm-hmm. Most of the dirt and the muck was coming from the inside onto the lenses. I was like, well, that's weird. What's going on there? And it just kind of led me down the different paths.
Interesting. Well, and so when we look for these, and this is really what happened with me, I started looking because I became aware it was possible. This is why I wanted to do this video. I wanted everyone to know that it's possible if you're on this path that you've been interfered with. It's likely, I'm going to just say it. This is a calculated risk, but I'm saying it's likely that you were messed with, whether or not you're with that counterpart that you would be with otherwise. You're still being messed with, right?
I
And
think we've all been messed with to some degree
oh
or other.
my God, like over and again and every which way, right?
Yep.
So the point is this is how simple it was for me. Number one, I saw it. Now it came into my consciousness, so I went to look for it. I didn't know that I could look for it. And I guess I honestly, in a lot of cases, I just don't trust myself that well with that kind of work. There's certain things I trust myself with, but in this case, is like I knew I needed to go and talk to Hamish. So I did. But when we found it was there, now I'm demagnetizing even more. I'm demagnetizing because I see what was there. So to get rid of implants and things of that nature, a lot of it, at least this is what Athena's video was saying, you just really need to see it. You need to see it. You need to understand how it affected me. Bless you. Did you sneeze? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so you need to see it. You need to recognize that it's there, and you need to say, I want this removed. And then your inner being can show you how to remove it, or someone like Hamish can show you how to remove it. But that's the key to all of this is once that happens, it will shift your perspective. It'll shift your perception. It will empower you because you haven't got that thing in the way anymore.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Changes your whole vision. I mean, my experience with implants, excuse me, is also that the seeing it, a lot of it goes when you just view it. A lot of it will disappear. And then the next step is that sometimes you just need to let go of it. Like we talked today about dropping the bags, and you don't even realize you're carrying the bags. Like the body, it's a funny thing, but the physical and the energetic body, if an idea or an implant or whatever is in your body for long enough, the body will start holding on to it as if it's part of the body. And you're saying, I don't even have it. I don't even know why it's still with me. I'm trying to get rid of it. And the body's going like this. Body's got to go, no. It's holding on to it like it's your arm. It doesn't. And so when you consciously allow the body to let go, then a whole nother level of implants and ideas and whatever will also disappear, because we're holding on to a lot of stuff that we think is ours, and it's not ours at all.
Right. And it's really hard sometimes to see that. I know I did want to sort of give like an analogy. You're really good with these, Hamish, but I have one from Kimberly, and I hadn't shared it with you yet. So I want to share it now because I thought this was brilliant that she put this together, because she was asking about the interference, right? And what she was talking about, she just got some baby chicks. All right. And so she has her baby chicks. She doesn't have a pen for them out in the yard yet. They're tiny. They need to be in an enclosed space. I mean, you're the farmer. I don't know anything about this stuff, but she's sharing with them. I love the baby chicks, and she's been showing them to me. But she said what she did is she created a space where they could go and keep warm. It's called a warming something. I don't know the terminology, but she said, because it's in her basement and because there's not a lot of light down there, she put a red light in. Okay, a red light in that would help them see during the day and everything. And there were lights in different places. But the chicks started being very attracted to this red light. So they'd go sit in front of the red light like it's the sun and it's warm and it's all these things, right? The false light. I just want to make that analogy right now. So, but what happened is she has all of these on a timer. So the lights go out, and what happens to those chicks? They don't know where they are, and they're not finding their way back to the nice warm space that she set up for them to be warm and nurtured and everything else. So what do? They nestle in together in the cold, one on top of each other, and they cling to each other like a collective, right?
Yep.
So what we were seeing is that this false light, once they're gone, once that false light's gone, if you want to call that the twin, if you want to call that, if you want to just call it the false light, it doesn't matter. Once that poofs on out, you're sitting here with a whole collective of people who are going through the same thing. And instead of going where they need to go, which is this warm place, this inner being, the inner you that is your home, that I just discovered a couple days ago. So please, no one's behind. Okay. This isn't, a lot of you have probably already said, yeah, Deb, we figured that out 5 years ago. Where have you been? But you get there, right? And it's kind of like, we're going to grow anyways. These chicks are going to grow anyways. They're going to grow. It's not that they're not going to grow, but think of what they've gone through in being cold and freezing and not warm and all that stuff. So there's the trauma, right? The trauma.
Yeah.
So I hats off.
That's a great analogy.
She was amazing, and it's just perfect situation. Before we wrap up, because I think we're pretty much at the end of what I think that I had on my list to cover here. I'm just looking at if there's anything here. Yeah, there is something that I wanted to talk about, and I think it's a good way to wrap up, because there are a lot of people that are very sure that they're sacred counterparts. And we've talked about this as well. And so what I want to kind of talk about, and then Hamish, you can kind of chime in here. In the Athena materials that I've listened to, there were a couple of things that she said. Interestingly enough, it's so funny. She put out a false, almost everyone here is a false twin. I know no one wants to hear that. I definitely did not want to hear that. I'm like, yeah, not me. No, mine's just different. Mine's not false. But anyways, but she said that this is the way things work. And this is where the true counterpart comes in. And I do resonate with this. Take it or leave it, but I'm going to share it with you. And she said that I can share her stuff because she said everything is in there for anyone to access. And she is Human Witness on YouTube. So I'm going to put her link below. So please go check out those videos. There's two. There's the twin flames. And then there's also the pond of tears. All right. What she talks about is when we opened the game, when the game was open and anyone could come in to play this game called the Universe of Light, which we are in a sub-partition right now called the False Matrix. We're trying to get out to the actual real universe. Okay. She said that what happened is people who like the same things, who had a lot in common, kind of like matching up, right? Hamish, does that sound kind of familiar? We were just talking about it. So, right, that's what we were talking about. Only in the False Matrix, they recreated it, but they just put their little Luciferian toe on the scale touch to it.
That's the one,
right? So anyways, but what she said is that we teamed up with a person of the opposite sex, because we did come in as male or female, and we made the decision, I want to go through this game with you because we have the same interests, we want the same thing out of it, we're so excited about everything. And we merged our energy fields into the universal field. So it was the universal being of light merged with the universe of light. Then we merged in, two people merged in that essence, which gave you a signature. Now, we're not the same soul, which everyone's saying. That's not true. We're not the same soul. You can fight me on that. I will duke you out with that. But we are of the same vibrational match because we chose to be. All right. So when you choose to be a vibrational match, then we'll get into the sob story very quickly. When it was time to go into the most condensed realm, we had to forget who we were. So if we had to forget who we were, we had to certainly forget who that counterpart was. So we went into this place. I remember it. I can vouch for being there. And just cried our eyes out because we were going to forget who we are. And that's where they get the pond of tears. And we had to first forget the person, and then we had to forget ourselves. Which one was worse? I personally think it was me forgetting me, now that I know the trick to the story. It's like, okay, you can go now, but now I don't know who I am. So that was when we put the infamous paper bag on our head and said, let's just play this stupid effing game. And I think we're all crazy. But yeah, so I say this all to encourage you all that there is somebody. I believe that, is there just one? I don't know. This is what Athena was shown. I resonate with that. But just remember something. This is one universe. There's all kinds of creation out there. We're in one game, one universe. You want to take that person, you want to go play a game in another realm? Woo, let's go. This is going to be fun. But you don't have to, because you're not the same soul. You can decide to. But so the sacred counterpart piece, I wanted to address that because I don't want to crash anyone. Well, gosh, I'm thinking, oh my God, I've been looking for my counterpart since I got here. Now what do I do? Well, I haven't given up. Right? I haven't given up. I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. And I'm saying that if this truth rings true for you as well, be glad. I was glad. I was like, oh my God, I am free to draw to me a healed divine masculine. All right. So that's where we're at. We are healing. In the very beginning, before you came on, Hamish, I was just telling everybody all this great work we've done, as a collective, we've done all this work. We're ready to draw in that counterpart. Thing is, a lot of the women are going, yeah, they haven't been doing their work. No one's going to show up for me. But the truth is that we were so interfered with. We had all these distorted ideas of what had to happen. All that had to happen is we had to come home to here.
Yeah.
And open up the door, which I'm still not. I'm going to admit, guys, I am not where I am ready to open up my door, because I'm like, is this going to happen to me again? I mean, I'm still dealing with trauma. So that's my path to walk. Everybody has their own path to walk. So I didn't want to leave that on a note like, okay, twin flames. No, there is sacred counterparts out there for you. And yours might be the one you catalyze with. You have to go in and find that out. But I can almost guarantee you, whether it's that person or not, you've been fucked with, my friends. Got to swear in the last couple of minutes, but I don't want to say goodbye without hearing whatever you want to say in terms of wrapping up our conversation here.
Oh no, I think that's a great way to end it, is just to say that's none of this is to diminish what anyone's going through or has gone through, or that you're on the wrong path or the right path, or it's none of that. And I really don't that's not how I approach anything in what I do anyway. How I approach it is I just ask questions, and you just ask the question, is this beneficial? And if the answer is no, then the next question would be, what would beneficial look like? Or what is there in this that is stopping it from being beneficial? Like, you just ask the questions. And, sometimes it's a slowly process, but you will get to a point where it's like trying to see the view and you're only a quarter of the way up the mountain, and you can only see one side of the valley and you really can't see. And you go, oh no, this is like, I had to work pretty hard to get here. This is it. This is the view. And if you would get to the top, you would notice that there's actually a very, very different view. And it's not better and it's not worse. It's just a much bigger perspective, as well as, you're at a different height. So you get a different perspective, and it's a bigger perspective. And so if maybe bigger is not better, you can only deal with what you deal with, that's fine. Like, don't ask a lot of questions, but asking those questions, because what you said, Athena said, is perfect. None of this stuff, none of the stuff that I do, none of this stuff is unique. We can all do this. We all have the ability to do this. It is easier when someone else does it with you, not for you, because I don't do anything for anyone. Right. I do it with them. I show them and I teach them how to do it. They do it while I'm holding space with them. And so I'm like an extra grounding pole. And, the field that I can hold joins to the field that they can hold, and it makes it sometimes easier, or you can get more done. But you're still doing the work, not me. And that's how most good people work. And so we all have the ability to ask these questions and get concise answers. And I mean, if you're asking questions in your life and you're not getting concise answers, who are you asking the questions to? And does that mean that, because you're saying this is this is nonsense. This is not me. None of this applies to me. But if you're asking questions and you're getting funny answers, you think there's not some sort of overlay in between you and what you should be communicating with.
Yeah.
So it's just about being, I mean, it's not even about being honest with yourself. It's just about getting the deepest connection you possibly can, and then asking the question and going with that first gut answer. And it'll lead you, you know, you walk, like I say, you walk yourself out of the corner. Like someone might have put a blindfold on you and walked you into the corner, but you can walk yourself out of the corner step by step. And the further out you get, the more you realize you had your nose in the corner and you really couldn't tell what was what.
Well, and with the interference that we've had, I mean, it's like we don't even know, like, if we're listening to, we could be listening to anything. We don't know anything. I mean, and
That's
that's why
exactly,
it's so important to do this work right now, because we
exactly.
are
Because
being ready to shift. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and the more, I mean, grounded means different things to different people, but really it's centered. It's the more centered you are in yourself and grounded, but not like grounded down into Mother Earth or grounded into, just grounded and centered in yourself and your own being, no matter how big or small that feels, the
Right.
more you can rest in that place, the clearer the communications will be, and you'll start to see where you've been messed with and where things are still messing with you, because it's constant. Like they don't ever leave you alone just because you remove this stuff and get it out. I mean, you just get to see it a lot more clearly, and you don't, it's like walking down the street and having scammers trying to peddle stuff and sell stuff to you. Like you can see the scam. Yeah. So
Right.
it's just about getting clear vision.
Right. Right. And the thing is the way I'm looking at this, and you know, we've talked a little bit about this as well, is as we move out of this realm, as we move out, and I don't even want to call it a realm, it's a freaking false matrix. We're actually probably going to a real realm. But as we do that, we are going to be in the frequency band of the level of work we've done. How's that for a piece of wisdom coming from my inner being right this minute? And that's the motivation to get these things out of you, because what we're about to experience over the next couple of months as we move into the shift out of this false matrix is where Lisa calls it the head on a swivel or whatever. We've got a lot of shifts and changes that are coming, and how those changes directly affect you, like your immediate you, is where you're sitting vibrationally. So where
and the cleaning.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, the cleaner you are, the cleaner you are. Like if you've got a lot of stuff coming down the pipe at you, you don't want to have a backpack on with something on your head, carrying 5 bags, stumbling down the street. Like you want to be as clean as possible.
Right. Well, what was I gonna say? I had a thought. I'm not really sure what it was. Something just interfered with me. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, I know. It's like you had said something about like Paris. If you look at France, France is in disarray. People in France are dealing with the total utter chaos of planet Earth. I'm dealing with, I had some neighbors that were throwing a little fiesta party out at my picnic bench that delayed our video. But look at the difference in chaos. That felt like chaos to me. It did feel disturbing to me, but the level of experience I had in my moment is going to be different because of the work I'm doing. At least that's what I'm telling myself. That's what I'm telling you. Do this work and you're not going to be in France. No, I'm getting kind of silly now. Hamish, thank you so much for being with us. And I would love to have you back on to talk about some other stuff, because I'm telling you guys, Hamish is the most fun person to have a conversation with in the whole world. And he's got some really, really great views on things. And listen, check out his YouTube channel. It's Hamish Bartholomeaus. Did I get it right?
You did. Yeah.
So that's it, and you can spell it from his name on the screen right now. Actually, I'll put the link to his YouTube right in the description box. And yeah, check out his videos. And he is like me in that he gets these bursts of insight, and he just sits down and he records it. And I really think that you need to see more people need to see your stuff, Hamish. So I'm gonna get the word out. All
Thank you.
right. So anyways, thank you guys for joining us. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. It really does help get the word out there. If you think that someone needs to hear this message. Otherwise, I guess we'll catch you in the next video.
Mm.
Bye.